You are listening to The Catholic Wire.
Welcome to the Young Man Podcast. I'm your host for today's episode, Anthony Alley, and I'm joined by the amazing Father Zepeda, and then our guest will be Landry Agrabite. Agrabite? How do you say that, Landry?
It would be Argabrite.
Oh, sorry. Argabite. Argabite. Gotcha.
Argabrite. Right.
Sorry. All right. So basically the premise of this podcast, this series, is just going to be, trying to encourage young Catholic men to, continue practicing their faith, and different ways for us to do that while we're also, still living in the world. Because, you have to be in the world, not of the world. So the first episode here is we're kind of just going to discuss manliness in general and different virtues that a man would want and need, and the lack thereof in today's world, and just different tips that Father's going to try to help us out. So, Father, good evening.
Good evening. The first thing is, I can't believe you called me amazing. Like, we said that as a joke when we were practicing for the show, but I guess now I'm going to have to start climbing walls and getting a red and blue suit and, throwing spider webs at people.
Oh, that's my bad.
I used to read comics. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure.
Well, this show is actually one that I'm really interested in. I really want to help out young men and young women. Not in this show. There's a show for young women, of course. But, I'll say, I'll give a personal twist here, about why I'm interested in. I myself have suffered of that bad training that we are receiving that makes us lack some of manliness. I'm not, we're all men. We all want to be men, whatever. But the concept of manliness is way higher than we expect, than we have. And the truth is that, me growing up, I was right in that change, right in that switch where generations started losing that even more radically. And I felt it myself. I didn't realize when I was growing up, when I was a teenager. But then once I got to the monastery and when I became a seminarian, I realized, whoa, I'm lacking these things. I'm lacking the things that would actually make me a full-grown, mature, man with all these virtues. And so it's something that I really want to help out other, guys out there, young men out there, to realize, hey, there are some things that the world is not demanding of you that you should have. There are some things that your school, your family, your society is not giving you, and you need to get it. There's a story in the ancient Greeks. There was a philosopher called Diogenes. How do you say that, Landry?
Diogenes.
Diogenes?
Yes.
You have a good voice in the radio. I like that. There was this philosopher was walking around town like a crazy man saying, I'm looking for a man. I'm looking for a man. And everybody thought he was crazy. And what he actually meant to say is that all of the men were not real men. They were lacking a lot of stuff. So I think that's some of the things that we see here. Feel free to interrupt me and interject. But, give you an example. You too, Anthony, feel free to let me know if you have something to say.
Yes, okay.
I'm actually afraid that a lot of our listeners might have the wrong idea when we're saying manliness, because we have that wrong concept. Our idea of manliness that we have gotten today is basically a guy that drinks a lot of beer. He's given to impurity. He's with a bunch of women. He's prone to anger, lack of self-control. If you go and make him mad, he'll yell at you and he'll be like, no way. It's like a violent guy that is not able to get a hold of himself. A guy that is not able to cope with adversity, that when something goes wrong, he goes like, this, and, gives you a bad sign with his hand. That kind of stuff is our idea of manliness. I think we really need to give ourselves what's our goal so that we actually improve to that. When we get to be real men, I think life is going to be a lot different, a lot better for us.
Yeah, I agree, Father. And I was actually really excited when you had brought this opportunity to me to host this podcast, because I think it was, whenever I think it was in the end of the springtime, I told you that me and my brothers were kind of just hosting like a goofy little podcast where we would, film ourselves sitting with our microphones at the table and just talk about movies and stuff. And then you offered to me to host this show. That was just really exciting to me, because I've actually been trying to keep up with a lot of my friends from Omaha that have, we've all split up and we've all gone our separate ways and, trying to do things. And I always like to try to call a few of my friends, maybe once a week or every other week, and just, check on them, see how they're doing. Because, I went to college. I went to a tech school for 2 years, and yeah, it wasn't great. I was very worldly, and trying to rebound from that, I'm just kind of trying to check up on the boys I know to see how they're doing. So I'm just happy that you offered this to me. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. No, it's my pleasure. You can ask Landry here. I've been looking for people to host or interview or whatever. It's almost like I'm some kind of a predator for radio. Like they look at me and they run away from me. It's like, oh no, he's gonna ask me to do something with him. I've asked some guys here probably like 20 times, and they always say like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it. Landry's open for it, but I've been reluctant, right, Landry?
Right. Yes.
Well, Father, if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to hop into some of the questions I have here.
Sure, for sure.
So
We'll have Landry answer them.
Oh, okay.
All
One of the first questions was just, what, in your opinion, you already kind of touched on this, but what's happened to manliness and the definition of it, and how did those ideas, get twisted as to what a man should be and what a man is, now represented as?
Landry, what would you say? Like, what do you think are the things that have damaged the idea of manliness the most?
The things that have damaged manliness
In our society.
the idea of it as well.
Like the wrong education that we've received. Where do you think we get that
Yes. Where do we get the wrong education or the wrong idea of manliness from?
from? Well, both. That's what, yeah.
Stage right now.
I'll say I'll say my idea, and then you can comment
Okay,
on that if you
I'll
want.
piggyback off of it.
Thank you. You just be like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, I have a comment.
No, there's so much stuff around it, but one thing that I would mention for sure would be the media. The media has given us a wrong training of it. All the stuff that we see on TV, the music, when I look at music back in my day, was bad enough. But when I look at today's music and, today's music videos and whatever, it's like the worst of perversion. And that's that leaves a trail in your mind, in your attitude. One thing I would say, you gotta say something too. One thing I would say is the lack of suffering. We don't have suffering anymore. We don't have effort. Before, when you were a man, you had to, go out and hunt. You had to go out and, get wood from outside to the house, bring water, crops. What you do at home, being a farmer or a rancher. There is a lot of effort to that. You actually have to get up in the morning and no matter what, and you go and work.
Mm-hmm.
And in our society today is like, you don't get that anymore. It's like, wake up at 6 a.m., go drink your coffee, take your hot shower. You don't have to do absolutely anything. Sit down in your car, sit down in your office, and, be quiet and gentle because everybody is in their safe zone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like your manliness is totally gone. And you need to train that. If you don't train it, you don't get it.
Yeah. And
those are some of the factors. I think there are more.
Yeah. I just wanted to add on to that. I've noticed, and I've read a lot and heard a lot about this, is that the way the media portrays men, not only in, let's say, like music videos where, it's just womanizing and all that impure stuff, but it's also, there's a lot of examples in like, let's say like a comedy TV show where the man's just kind of like a dumb, dopey, he doesn't really do much, and the wife kind of, just controls him and tells him what to do, and she's like the boss. She's like the man of the family, basically. She wears the pants. So it's just, you see that a lot, and I think that also can have an effect on, young guys, and it can probably just be a confidence killer for young men too.
Yeah, for sure. And something that I've realized dealing with young teenagers is that they lack character. And we'll talk about what character is in one of the questions there. But they lack that strength, that willingness to sacrifice. And I saw that in myself. I saw that in myself when I went to the monastery. I've told Landry about this because we have a lot of talks together sometimes. When I went to the monastery, it was like the first couple months I would be going like every 1 month or every 2 months. I would go to the superior saying, I can't do this. I can't. Mm-hmm. It's too hard. And he'd be like, no, you can. And no, I can't. And it's like, it wasn't anything hard really that I was going through other than a little bit of effort. Mm-hmm. And I kind of needed, and I think all guys do, you need someone to actually hold you there in the line and saying, no, you're not going to run away. You're going to deal with it. That's a process that's supposed to happen in your teenage years. Yeah. When your dad or your mom says no, deal with it, fight it. Or, you get to work and keep that work going or whatever it is. But that, lacking of suffering, lacking of effort, and a lot of devices too. I think devices have a lot of issue in this because we have turned to be, again, more comfortable and just prone to pleasure with all this thing of just sitting down in your phone, in your computer. If you're doing it to listen to the Catholic Wire, that's of course okay. But if it's for something else, then yeah, it's totally evil.
Yep. Yeah, and just thinking about back when I was in high school, all of that, the impurity and just the disrespect and the lack of try, because it seemed like what I remember from school is like the kids who were kind of if you'd say nihilistic or they just didn't care, they were they were the cool ones, and you always see that. And then when you kind of grow up and you realize like the kids who acted that way in high school aren't really doing anything with their lives. Not to be mean, but that's what you notice. Like if you're not training these values and these skills, then you're not gonna get far. But that's kind of how I was kind of brainwashed into thinking that way. So mm-hmm. It was like the less you try, the cooler you are.
Yeah, because you're supposed to be some kind of a rebel.
Yeah, like that's the ideal, student or something to your peers. That's what it seems like it would be.
Mm-hmm. I think that I agree. I can relate to that, Anthony, as well. And to bring it back to what Father said, it comes from the media that we're exposed to, mm-hmm. or at least I was just growing up every single day on my phone. Yeah, everything, TV, news.
Video games.
Yeah, video games. That's a huge one.
Yeah. See, that's one that is like so you have this shooting video game and you shoot people and you think that you're ready for war or that you're some kind of a tough guy, and you every now and then you'll hear these kids saying, "Oh yeah, I'd be fine for war," because I know how to shoot people. It's like you don't even know how to run, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that's not the real world. So mm-hmm. I think those are the main obstacles. Kind of that. I think we're lacking. And I think that's going to be another one of the questions, but we're lacking training in the family, we're lacking training in the school, and we're lacking training in society, and we're lacking that they expect more from us. They should have more expectations from us. They should demand more from us. But that's one of the tricks of the devil, don't demand anything from them because I don't want to see them grow.
Yeah. If you have the majority of the men in your society are strong men, then you're going to have a very successful, virtuous society.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess going off of that, what are a few basic qualities that a Catholic man needs? I guess, 3 or 4 of the most important ones.
Oh, well, yeah, we would need a lot of them, and I'm hoping that some of the shows are going to deal with that. Like we're going to have actual shows speaking of each one and how you practice it, what it really means. But I think, of course, you have the main virtues, the cardinal virtues: justice, fortitude, temperance, prudence. When you explain those things, that kind of sums it up all. But just to give you some, it's good to go to particular ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that you really see lacking that we should have. For example, when it comes to justice, well, the virtue of religion, the virtue of having respect for your country. That's only the virtue of justice in a certain way. When you see a man, for example, back in my day, or even when I was learning, your country was a sacred thing. And if someone came and insulted your country, you would actually do something about it. Yeah. Your mother was a sacred thing. Your father was a sacred thing. And this is something I talk to the boys a lot. It's like, I remember I was in junior high and some guy made a joke about some guy's mom. Like what they do today, your mom.
Yeah, yep.
And this guy was a moral man. He grabbed the guy from the shirt, boom, put him against the wall, and he said, "You ever say anything about my mom again, I'm going to break your face."
That's
and,
awesome.
I don't want anyone to get scandalized here with a priest suggesting that. Not to break anyone's face, but what I'm saying is, yes, if someone messes with your mom, your mom is respected.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't mess with any other people, man, because that's a sacred thing. That's one thing. Another one that I see lacking a lot, and this is very, very common, and I saw it in myself, is the lack of perseverance. Run away. When something is difficult, that's it. I'm not taking it anymore. That's super common nowadays. And I don't blame anyone. It's like, because I was the same way. And that's because we haven't been trained. But, one of the main things that we need as men is to face difficulties. If you're somewhere and something becomes difficult, it's like you face it and you go forward. That doesn't mean that you're going to take everything that comes your way. But what I mean to say is that rather than guiding guiding your life or decisions by this is difficult, so I'm out, is more like, okay, reason tells me that there is this better thing, or that I should not do this because it's wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Give you an example, a very clear example, the border house.
Mm-hmm.
How many times we would have in the border house a boy and they would say like, oh, it's too hard, no, doing dishes, this and that, I don't want to be there. And that's like, no, that's the moment where you have to say, I'm going to take it. Why? Because it's hard, and also because it's good for me. Even though it's hard, it's good for me. That's what my reason tells me, even though it's hard. And there was one more that I wanted to mention, and I totally forgot. I don't know, Landry, can you think of anything else that men should have? There's a lot of stuff too, but
there's quite a few.
Oh, sorry, you go, Landry.
I was just going to say, we mentioned justice, fortitude, perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones so far.
I was thinking of... Oh, dang it, I keep interrupting you.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking of I guess it's not one of the cardinal virtues, but which one would honesty fall under? Would that fall under justice?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, telling the truth in general. It just seems like, the preferred thing would be to, if you're going to get in trouble for it, lie. And that that's not just a man thing. That's just kind of how it's become. If it's going to be a painful consequence, then just kind of try to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that is really neat. The willingness of men to abide by the truth. We're going to go into that too, I think. It's just, as a man, is like your honor. That's a huge one. Honor. To actually have a sense of honor and respect for yourself. And, I myself, 36 years old, at this point, I find myself, I need to work on that. Where you honor yourself, you respect yourself, and you actually have a sense of dignity. And the stupid thing is right now they confuse that with pride. And so you have a kid that says, don't yell at me, don't tell me what to do. And it's like, that's just pride. And they're willing to abase themselves in other stuff. But, they just don't want to be told what to do. That's not honor. Honor and dignity is when you're actually when you value who you are and you value who you want to be, and you have a goal towards which you're going to. That would be another one. And just before I forget, because I don't want to forget this one. This one has a weird name. It's magnanimity. and that is the willingness to undertake difficult tasks. I can tell you how many times I've seen this in very grown men, and it's not that I'm free from it, but it's like you go and you tell them there is this project, there is this thing that can be done, or there is this big problem. I'm not gonna have to do anything to do with that. I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't do. It's like they don't want to take it.
Yeah.
And it's so common, it's so common. Like you can give you an example. You can have a really good job opportunity, a really good business, but it takes a lot of risk. You have to go there and jump into something that you don't know how to do. And guys are like, oh, no, I don't know how to do that. Man, it's an opportunity. No, yeah, I'm good here in McDonald's.
Yeah. It's like the being afraid of failure almost.
Yeah, it's so common, and I've seen this so many times, and it boggles my mind, because it's like that's one of the main things that you should have as a man. We, the men, are the ones that start those kind of things. We are the ones that go to the moon, whether you went to the moon or not. We are the ones that cross the Atlantic Ocean. We are the ones that win World War II. So we are the ones that have that responsibility of starting those great things, and that's one that I really see lacking nowadays. And that's one of the reasons why I admire the bishop a lot. Because the bishop is like something huge that is coming, and he sees it, and he's like, well, let's go for it.
He's a tough guy. He's from the south side of Chicago. He loves that type of stuff.
Yeah, he's been there.
Something that made me think of was my dad had bought these Lifetime books, and they're these really cool old style leather bound books, and they're just about basically the late 18th, or it'd be the late 19th century, the settlers and stuff in the western part of America. So we only have 3 of the books. There was a lot more, but one of them was the guys who laid like the Transcontinental Railroad. So it's called the Railroaders. The other one is the loggers. So it'd be like in the Northwest, like Washington and Oregon. The guys, there was the huge industry up there of logging all those trees. And then there was just the great native chiefs from, the West, and how the army dealt with them. But it's just amazing reading those and seeing the pictures, because these guys literally, like, there's pictures of guys trying to carve through like the Sierra Nevada mountains to get a railroad through, and they're just picking at it with hand tools for like 2 years, and then they finally make this tunnel. It's just like they're struggling so hard for something for years, and like I couldn't even imagine doing that. Yeah.
And then it's that's how it was before.
Yeah, they're just so and even thinking about my dad, he's farms and ranches, and he does hard work, all day, every day he's working, except for Sunday. And then you think of, just the guys who came here, like his grandpa, 100 years ago, and how hard they had to work every day. And just, And then I think about when I complain, like the air conditioning in my tractor went out. I'm like, they didn't have cabs or anything like that back in the day. They didn't even have tractors. They were using a team of horses.
It's just funny because I imagine, like your grandpa listening to that.
Yeah, he's just disappointed. What's wrong with you, man?
My dad had my grandfather was a one-armed cowboy from Mexico.
Oh, wow.
And he was missing, I think, I don't remember if it was the right or the left arm. But one time he was on the horse, and he called one of his sons. He was 20-something at the time. The son, I mean. And he said, like, son, come over here, something like that. And the son just looked at him, and he said, I'll be right there. And he looked back to his friends, and he kept talking to his friends. He didn't mean bad. He just said, I'll be right there. The father, he's like, you're not doing that. He lassoed him. He lassoed him with one arm, pulled him over to the horse, and, when I said you come right now. I was like, yes, sir.
Yep. That reminds me of something else. My mom had told me a story of, we have some, I'm not sure who these guys are, but there's some neighbors from around the area. But she said, one time, this would have been back in the day, because there's like four or five brothers now. They're all grown up. They're all old guys. But said back in the day, I don't know when this would have been, but the youngest son, like his mom told him to do something, and he kind of, disrespected her. and all the boys just took him outside and beat him up. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's not cool, but you know, the mom didn't even do anything. She was just like, that's right.
It's border boy justice.
Yep, that's right.
Landry, do you have anything to add to that? No stories?
No stories. I'm not a storyteller.
That's true. He's not a storyteller. I can vouch for that. I've tried.
Oh, that's okay. I had one more that I guess this, yeah, I remember now. It kind of plays off of what you were talking about before with honor, but just a sense of duty, you know, I guess just being a man and whatever your station in life is, just having, you know, really that high sense of duty and the responsibility, you know, like I have to get this done. This is what God put me here to do.
Mm-hmm. Like the guys in World War II, you know?
Yeah, like that's a awesome sense of duty that they had, because I guess you could say that about most guys who enter the military. You know, they may not really understand the big mission or really why they're there, but you know, they join to serve their country, and that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. Well, we'll save the stories because you know we're going to be repeating ourselves a lot. This stuff is going to come over during the show, but it's good because we need repetition to kind of move ourselves to work and to act.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll move on to the next question here. So we've already talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but what do you think the major obstacles for young men are today, just trying to be men?
Yeah, I think we talked about it already. You know what it is. I would summarize it again as the lack of religion. I think that's the first one, actually, the lack of religion. Some guys might go like, "Oh, well, Father's preaching here. He's talking about religion because he's a priest." And no, I mean, the fact is that whether you like it or not, religion is kind of like a foundation for the rest of the things. So when you try to set your religion right, it kind of forces you to act on virtue, on other stuff as well. So that's number one. Lack of family. You know, a lot of the guys right now don't have a father or don't have a mother, or if they do, the father doesn't know what he's doing, or the mother doesn't know what she's doing, or they you know, unfortunately, after the 60s, we lacked a lot of what was supposed to be the family training, the family education, and so that plays on that too. The schooling is horrible right now, I don't want this show to be like negative, like all complaining and that kind of stuff. We're focusing on the positive side, but I mean, we do have to kind of talk about this. You know, the fact is that we know that colleges and schools right now are government ruled, they're government guided, and the government has made it a point again to not take into account religion or morality, and so that destroys education. You know, education, just to say it very briefly, people see education right now as the training of the mind. I bring my son over there so that you put stuff in his head, and that's education. And that's not true. That's just half of education. The very important part of education is actually the training of the will, where you learn how to act properly, how to act well. And that's what's missing. You know, in school, they don't teach you to act properly, to act in the right manner. Actually, it's quite the opposite. You know, they'll just let you do whatever you want as long as you get A's in the test. And so it's a lack of education. You're just training one half, and the worst half, the half that, you know, is not even the most important one, because it's not good to you if you know a lot of stuff, but your will is just trash. And, you know, how often do we see that? And well, what we mentioned before, a lack of suffering as well, a lack of situations that demand effort from us.
And to take that even a step further with the education, I've been reading a couple books on just what's happened to the universities, you know, in the last 60 so years, since the 60s. And, you know, it seems like the universities, you know, 100 years ago or more, it was, you know, you'd read these great works, like the great books, and then, you know, your teacher and you guys would discuss them, and, you know, you may not, the teacher's not going to tell you how to think about them, you know, and obviously I guess I was reading books from non-Catholic universities, so I don't even really know how a Catholic university would work, but just talking about secular universities, it seems like nowadays they have them read books and they tell them how to think about them. And especially if you're talking about the really, you know, left-leaning professors, which the majority are now. These kids just go into college to just be indoctrinated. And I know a lot of kids that's happened to them. Before they went to college, they were, had more thoughts that aligned with me, and then they go for a year or 2 years, and now it's like you don't recognize any of their ideas because they're not any of their own ideas.
Yeah. Well, that's why Landry left college.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was supposed to say that on the air.
That's true. Yes, that is why I left. It was a bunch of repetitive indoctrination year after year, and as Father said, it wasn't training of the will; it was training of how to get the best grades at any cost.
Yeah.
What were you studying?
I was studying business, and then I was minoring in computer science.
So, Landry, I got to have a question just because this is something I've been studying, and we could probably talk about this more in a different podcast, but I guess I'm wondering, in a lot of your classes, did they always have some type of, lefty, like identity politics type, content, injected into the class? Was there always kind of this lefty bias in them, even if it was just about business?
Yes, I would say every subject there was something thrown in there.
Wow.
Just something.
Like what kind of stuff?
Well, there was one time in economics, it was communism, like just thrown in there, like redistribution of wealth to those who, they don't have ice cream over here in this area, so we're going to take from the people who have ice cream and give it to them. As like, wow. That's how economics can work. That was a couple years ago, so I don't remember the exact details, but it's just stuff like that over and over. And then you look at the big picture of it. What is college even training you for? What is this education for?
Yeah.
I mean, nothing Catholic.
Yeah.
I went to college. We talked about this, Landry and I, too, because I went to college, and I was going to college during the night, afternoon night, and studying or working, during the morning. I had like a full-time job, and then I would go to college after that. And I learned everything on my job. I didn't learn barely anything at college. Yeah. There was a time where I went, we had a teacher, and he was our teacher for 3 different semesters. And it's like the third semester, we were seeing the same things that we had seen at the first semester. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This guy is not teaching us anything. And I went and talked to other guys from other career or school. And I what have you guys seen in this class? And it's like, we're seeing, recursivity at the time. And I'm like, what the heck is that? We had no idea of nothing. It's like this guy had been teaching us the same thing for 3 semesters because he was someone's friend. And I had to go on and complain. We actually rioted. We're not going with this guy anymore. We're not going to this class because he's crazy. And honestly, like there was another instance where, I probably shouldn't say this on the air, but because I used to work, most of the times I wouldn't make it to the first class. But I would manage to pass because I would just come and say, well, here is this project, this awesome project, and just, it's basically what you're doing in class. So I had this teacher, and that's what it was kind of my fault. I wasn't able to go to any class of the year. I just went to the first one and the last one. That's it. And when I show up to the last class, he's like, are you crazy? There's no way I'm going to pass you. And I'm like, well, what are you doing for the project? And he's like, we're presenting these projects right now in front of this jury. And I said, well, I have this project from work. And my project was just as good as anyone else's. And I passed.
That's great.
It's like you really, unfortunately, a lot of the college is really field time, field classes, which wasn't like that before. Before, when you look at the theses from old students, is like the level of college before was very, very, very demanding. Now it's like, just let's get as many people as we can here so that we can charge them and
get some money, make some money.
Make some money.
Oh, yeah.
What I also saw from college, kind of like Father in his story, it's if you wanted to learn something, you could just do it on your own. There's so many resources out there, and Father doesn't go to class and then shows up with a project. It's totally doable just to learn on your own. But if you don't have that will trained or the virtues, it makes it much more difficult to learn.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something that isn't really, they don't really highlight that when you go to school. They don't it's just you go to school and you do your learning at school and then you leave and it's like, well, now I just hang out. I don't need to do anything now. I already learned at school for however many hours, but your whole life you need to constantly be learning. Otherwise you're a fool.
Yeah, for sure. I see that myself, 36 years old, again, being a priest, and it's like, man, there's so much that I need to learn and improve.
Yeah. Landry, I had, I guess this question could be for you as well. If you were to go back to college, I mean, I'm assuming you wouldn't go back based on what you've said about it, but knowing what you know now, how would you act? How would you act differently? Going about your business, getting your schoolwork done and all that.
If I were to go back now, well, I will add that I converted 3 years into college, or two years into college. So I had 1 year as a Catholic, 2 semesters. It's really just put your head down. I would put my head down and just do my duties, and then to the best of my ability, and try to shut out all the other things that go on around.
Were you in any fraternity or no?
I was in a fraternity up until last spring. Yes, I was in that, that's why I said I converted 2 years into college, because the first 2 were spent in that organization, in the fraternity. And but
I don't mean to bring out all your private life here.
An open book now.
Oh yeah. We didn't, the school I went to, it was just a tech school, so it the majority of the students were going there for diesel tech, agronomy, stuff, car. What was the other one? But yeah, my business program, I knew most of the teachers in there were liberal, but they really didn't try to indoctrinate me, because I was like on the lookout for that, because you hear about how colleges are, but honestly, I didn't really learn that much in my school. I'd agree, but I wasn't also getting, lefty things shoved down my throat. So I am grateful for that.
Tech school and that kind of community college, usually they're not so bad, in my knowledge, at least as far as I know, just because, it's more focused on working. And I think probably, I'd like to suppose, it's kind of like a supposition, just that the government probably doesn't care too much about those people.
Yeah.
It's like they almost see it like, those are the ones that we can just convince with, whatever. But, they care about the ones that are going to be going, I guess, I don't mean it to sound like that, but the guys that are going to be going to more influential positions, they want to get the ones that are in the cities.
Oh yeah, I was just
the political
party. So the guys going to the tech schools, they're let's say on average, they're probably not like the straight A's kid in the class and the really smart one. They're good with cars, and they probably didn't like high school and they weren't very good at it. So, they're going to get a trade and they're going to make money right away. Whereas if you're going to a university, you're probably, probably a really smart kid, and you think you want to go get even more smart. And then that's just, prime real estate for them.
And they also know that, most people that go to the tech colleges or community colleges are mostly conservative.
Yeah. They're coming from a ranch or a small town where those ideas don't really fly.
Yeah.
So, Father, why is our society villainizing masculinity? And of course, we've already kind of discussed this a little bit, but
just I'll try to make it short so that we can wrap it up shorter. But you cannot leave outside the fact that the forces in the world are influenced by someone. It's either influenced by God or the devil. And here we just have to acknowledge that there is an influence that is moving these things, and that has to be the devil. The devil, he's attacking Christendom, he's attacking Christianity. And what do you do? Well, when you want to attack something, you go to the source, you go to the core. And that's why he's attacking so furiously the family. and he's attacking the essence of woman and of men. You know, if you grab a man and you destroy his essence, he's boneless. He's nothing. He's just a snake in the floor with no vertebra or whatever.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So that's what he's doing. If you notice, all the things that are happening in society are aimed at destroying the essence of womanhood, the essence of manhood, and the essence of the family. Because if you break that, it's kind of like what the coronavirus does. We had to mention that in the show.
Oh, no.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Let's go back 5 minutes. It's like one of those viruses, what they do, where they attack the cells in your body. And if you attack the cell, then everything gets sick. So the devil is doing that. He's attacking the cell, and one of the main cells is manhood. If men were men, society would be so much better. You know, just to put a tiny, tiny little example, kind of reference to that, is kind of like the Second Amendment. When you have guys that are willing to defend themselves and they have guns, the government doesn't mess with them because he knows, I can't. You know, they can shoot back. It'll be a mess. Yeah. Kind of like that happens when you have real men. I'm not talking about that in particular, but, you know, when you have real men defend themselves. Men have principles. They have goals. And so things happen, you know, and bad things are not able to happen as easy because there's someone that fights against it. And so the devil wants to get rid of those, you know, those are the enemy, the guys that are willing to stand for something.
Yeah. So how do we convince the young men that we know that they need to listen to this podcast so that they can get all this good information from you?
I'm just feeling bad for Landry right now because we're all super tired, actually, the three of us. I should say that we're recording at 7:59 p.m.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You know, we're men.
Right. Practicing manliness right now.
That's right.
That's probably the hardest thing, I think, because they need to see. I'll just say it very briefly. The first thing is you have to show them vividly what they gain by being men and what they lose by not. And, you know, this is something we would do sometimes with the border boys. We would hang out sometimes a long time. And we would be talking. And what I would like to do sometimes is to just put it with all the words. This is what's going to happen. These are your two choices. If you do the right things, this is going to happen. This and this and this and that. You know, you're gonna have a good family. You're gonna go back home. You're gonna see your children coming back and greeting you. They'll be respectful to you. They'll be respectful to your mom. Your wife is gonna be respectful. You're not gonna be worried about whether if she's, you know, hanging out with someone else. You know, just like paint the whole picture. And the other picture, what is it? Well, you're gonna be here living in your apartment. Then you're gonna be with your girlfriend, but you don't know if she's with someone else. And then it's like you've had to give away your religion, and then you're not seeing your mom anymore because she's mad at you. And then when you get a child, it's like you're not even married. And so here comes the whole mess. Then you break up with your girlfriend. Then you get another girlfriend, and then you have another child. And now you have two children, and they don't get along with each other. You know, like the whole picture, and it's real. And when you paint that, it's like, okay, this is, we're not kidding here. You know, this is what really happens. I think it's very important to show that realistically. And the other thing is, and this is the main one, to have an example. It really helps when you see someone putting these things in practice. When you have someone around you that is a man with honor, that you respect, that you admire, it's like that drags, you know. And so I think the first thing we need to do is get ourselves into shape, physically, spiritually, mentally, and then help drag others to that same position.
Yeah. So last question here. Going off what you said, physically, spiritually, and mentally, what's one thing that we could, you know, the young man listening and us participating here, what are some things we could do in all three of those aspects to start, you know, turning into godly men?
The first thing I would say, and honestly, I'm going to say this honestly, if I could leave religion aside for a moment here, just so that I could convince you that this is not biased, I would. But, you know, you can't, and there's a reason for that. Religion is the foundation of everything, really. Even if we don't want it, even if you're not Catholic, you know, you who are listening, the truth is that, you know, that's the foundation of all. So the first thing we need to do is to actually practice in a congruent way, in a truthful way, a religion. And that means usually the first step is removing sin. If you want to be a moral man, if you want to be strong, if you want to be faithful, if you want to be perseverant, if you want to be able to suffer, if you want to be magnanimous and go for big enterprises, you'll need religion. You can't do it by yourself. And you need to remove sin first. And so I think that's the first main battle that we all have. And it has to be a strong, fierce battle. I've never seen anyone who didn't have to fight fiercely to get rid of sin, especially in this day and age. It's something where you really need to be extreme. And, that's where manhood really becomes, you start practicing it. So removing sin is for sure the first, and that will cover a lot of topics in the future, maybe. So I'm not trying to preach. That's just necessary. Without that, you can try to practice any other virtue. If you're given to impurity, or you're given into anger, or you're given into slothfulness, forget about it. That's not going to work. You need that first. Mm-hmm. The second one, mentally, what you mentioned, always keep learning. I think it's very necessary for us to disconnect. You wanted to have the first show about that. I hope we do one. We need to disconnect from devices, from TV, all that kind of stuff. That numbs our minds. Mm-hmm. It really destroys your faculties of thinking. And again, I have seen this in myself, how my faculties have been diminished by doing that. So we need to disconnect and actually learn and take time of learning in the real manner, not looking at Google, but actually going out and doing stuff or studying books or something. Mm-hmm. And physically, we need to work out. Landry here, I'll have to say Landry, I'm sorry. He wakes up like at 5:30 in the morning, goes out for a run. He finds a deer and he wrestles with the deer usually.
all barefoot.
All barefoot, yeah. I just hear outside like, whap, whap.
Oh, that's good.
No, but he does that. He actually wakes up early in the morning for a run. But we need to do also physical stuff and painful, difficult physical stuff. And that's where I'm lacking, honestly, Landry. I got to say I'm lacking there. I'll have to work for that.
Well, it goes back to the helping each other out. I lack in areas where you've definitely shown, because you've also mentioned you've been through it. So you're like, yeah, magnanimity. Magnanimity.
There
Almost,
you go.
yeah.
Almost got it.
I'll help you with spelling too.
I need that as well. Oh, God, I think that's part of it. It's guys getting together, men, and pointing things out like this podcast, subjects we need, and then acting on it, doing stuff.
We try to get together every noon or somewhere around there, and we do push-ups together.
Oh yeah,
but that's because we're sitting in a desk job most of the day.
Yeah, so you need something like that. You need to take a lap or do something when you're sitting at the desks all day.
That's what I do with Landry. With Evan, I'll go and I'll punch his arm.
Well, we need to get Evan in on the program then. You got to get everyone in on it.
Yeah, he's coming. He wasn't in today, but hopefully for the next one he'll be here.
Good.
It'll be hard to stop him from talking. Landry's hard to get to talk. Evan's gonna be hard to stop him from talking, probably.
That's okay. Well, that'll all come in later episodes. But I think this is a good place to wrap it up. What do you guys think?
I think it's very good. I think this was a good show.
Okay, yeah, this is awesome. A great inaugural podcast. So,
yes, indeed.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Landry, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
And Father Zepeda, of course, thank you very much.
Thank you. Abstain from the amazing episode.
Okay. We'll cut that out for the next one. But thank you all for tuning in to the Young Man Podcast, and this is the Catholic Wire. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Catholic Wire. If you have found this show helpful, please say a prayer for all our collaborators. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels and share with your friends. For questions and comments, you may contact us at thecatholicwire.org.